Hello. Thank you for tuning in at Framers Touch Happy Hour. Today our guest is Emily Lux. Emily is someone whom I absolutely admire, respect, and adore. Her artwork is amazing. Her devotion to the community is endless, and she's a spectacular individual. So I look forward to you getting to know her and me getting to know her better. So stay tuned. We'll bring Emily on in just a moment.
Hello.
Happy hour.
Hello. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, Emily, thank you so much for agreeing to be on our happy hour. And I'm excited for our viewers to get to know you and for me to get to know you better. I've known you, I don't know how many years now. It's been quite a while, but you just have got so many different talents. I want to share that. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes.
And your art?
Thank you for having me and welcome to my attic. Nate and I joke that our whole house is our studio because that's the truth. So this is the attic part of it. This is where I'm teaching from. I love to paint. I love every form of painting. Painting's been sort of the common thread. I like to work in multiple mediums, but I get bored with format. So I usually kind of laugh to myself because I do anything from painting the sides of buildings in the sense of creating public art and murals, and then most recently I've been working incredibly small in super tiny sketchbooks, and I illustrate children's books as well.
And you also are you're a photographer, and you do collages, and the illustrations. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. You do big pieces and small pieces.
Yeah, so I teach high school art, and that is what I do full time. And I feel like I also create art full time outside of that. And that includes, it's not just a categorical thing. I feel like all the different mediums they kind of run together. I think whichever tool is the most useful at the time to get your message across is what tool you should use. And that's one of the messages that I try to give to my students, is that you don't have to think of yourself as one thing. You don't have to be a photographer or a painter or a football player. Like, you can be multiple different. There's so many facets to us, and I think once that's freed up, they tend to experiment more, and that's one of the major goals of art making, is just to try new things and encourage other people to do that too.
I think that's great. People have that fear of not being accepted or not being good enough, or you need to pursue something that is better or something in life, and that all that does is tamper down all of the creative side. And it's our creative side, I believe, is what gives us the energy and the strength to maybe be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, or pursuing your art full time. So you have to have that balance.
I think creative thinking applies to any job or any endeavor. I think that it's useful all over. I think at some point experimentation got equated with lacking focus. And
got equated with what?
With lacking focus. Because if you try a lot of different things, maybe you're not focusing enough. And I think that the opposite is true. I think often the more we experiment, the more we learn what we're good at, and we can get our message out in different ways.
Wow, I really like that message. Like it a lot. That's very thought-provoking. So of all the different formats, Emily, that you work in, do you have a favorite of formats?
I don't think it fluctuates a lot. I wouldn't say that I have a favorite, because it might be different, in 3 months. I love working large. I love working small. I've had to give myself permission to do that. For a long time, I was only painting large paintings, and I just realized at some point that it wasn't as satisfying anymore, and it wasn't maybe expanding my work in the way that I felt like. In a way, I felt I was holding myself back. So right now, the thing I guess that I feel like would be the most useful to talk about today is working in sketchbooks. That's my favorite and most satisfying, even in the midst of everything else. Like, I'm still working on large and small paintings, and I've got a couple of books that I'm working on, but I work in these tiny sketchbooks, and that is the thing that it's really continuous. I do this every single day. I used to be much less successful at it. I have a whole graveyard of sketchbooks that I never finished them. I think because I assumed that since I made large paintings that I had to have a large sketchbook, and I would just like tear out a page that I didn't like, or start a few pages that I was really satisfied with, and then never finish the book because I got stuck, or it just wasn't attractive to me. And since I started switching formats and switching how I thought of the sketchbook, like what its use is to me, I've had a lot more success. And now I'm going through a book about this size every 2 or 3 months.
Wow. I hear the word sketchbook a lot, and I've seen all of your stuff on Facebook. I love it. But I don't quite understand, when you have a sketchbook, what do you sketch? So do you have like a theme when you go to your books, or do you just start doodling? Does a doodle turn into what differentiates, just what makes a sketch, I guess?
I think that's a really good question. I used to think of it as a planning tool. So I would go into my sketchbook and start planning paintings that I was going to make. Or if I had some ideas, I would make lists in there. And again, it didn't feel as useful. I kind of like to plan larger paintings on a separate paper. And with my sketchbook, it really varies. I sometimes I'm stuck, so I rip apart a lot of magazines. Sometimes I'll find an image and I'll work around that image, whether it's a magazine cutout or just a doodle that I've done. I let my kids also sometimes draw in my sketchbooks. I have a picture that I'll show you later, and then I'll paint around that. So it really becomes a lot of different things. Like occasionally I will look at a word or a quote and I'll write that in there, or I'll cut out magazine pieces and put that in there, and then I'll make a painting around that. And then sometimes I just have something really clearly that I want to get out, and that's what I'll use it for. So it's a huge variety. I like to tell people, and my students especially, because I have photography students who are like, oh, I don't need a sketchbook. And like, it's really, I think the term sketchbook is a little bit, it's a little too narrow, because a lot of people have a diary or a journal or a sketchbook, and I just think of all of them as an idea book. And anyone can have an idea book. It's just a book of things that you think about, or you want to do, or you want to play around with.
Yeah, I like that word. Do you have any examples, or can you show us some things that you've done or sketches to help inspire somebody to start a sketchbook?
Yes, I'm gonna try to share my screen. So I went through last night for my all the sketchbooks, or sorry, all the images that you're gonna see, hopefully in a second, came from these books. So these are all from the last year or so. A few might be from a little bit past that. So I'm gonna do my best to try this.
Okay, we'll go for it.
Okay. Okay, can you see it?
I see, yes, there.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Great. So I included a variety of things. A lot of my pages I would never share. So I just included some screenshots of things that show a variety of different types of art and different types of things that I do in my sketchbook. It's a lot of writing. Sometimes it's things like this that are torn out, occasionally illustrations. I do a lot of color testing just because I'm sort of obsessed with like the full spectrum of color. So you'll see things like these. This is a little comic strip. This is something that started as a quote, and then I sketched around it. Also, there are some that I spend a lot more time on. Wow. I don't use it as a planning tool anymore, so I don't purposefully sketch something out that I intend to do something with later. But sometimes I do. Like this one actually was used to become a larger canvas painting at the Valley Art Skirmish. So I just took this, I had it open, and I replicated it during that art competition, the timed competition.
That's amazing.
It's usually watercolor. I really work a lot with watercolor.
Well, you also, I interviewed, I got the chance to interview Anne Poplinski.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and we were talking about you a little bit during the interview, so you'll have to tune in for that. But she is in love with your walnut inks that you make.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I made that with my drawing class. So I was able to collect walnuts actually from Ashley Roth, who lives in town, who most people know. She had a black walnut tree. So I got those walnuts and then took them to my classroom, and we did this 3-day process of creating the ink. I thought I would do it every year, but we ended up with like 6 gallons. So we're still using that. And Anne, I love Anne. I can't wait to see her interview. Some of the ink is in here as well.
So what advice do you have for someone that might want to start a sketchbook?
I think that I'll just kind of scroll through these as we're talking. I think to open up what your intention is, right? Like, it's hard to describe a good starting place because there really isn't one. I mean, when you're looking at a blank page, that can become all kinds of different things. I would say if you're stuck, start with a quote. Start with, go through a magazine, an old magazine, and start tearing things apart. That's what I did with this one. I do that frequently when I'm not sure exactly what to do. I treat it sort of like stream of consciousness writing, where you have maybe an idea, but you have a timed amount of time and you just go for it. And it's really, I think I mentioned earlier, it's sort of my method of meditation. I aspire to be good at that as a calming mechanism, but really this is that for me. This is how I end my day. And it's been a really useful tool for the last several years. So I do something like this where maybe I have a phrase, often a quote. I would recommend that to people. Just go through and find something that inspires you and try to build something around it. And don't be afraid to cover it up. I wouldn't tear out any pages that you're unhappy with. I did that for so long, and I really wish I hadn't, because now I know, for example, under some of these, like this was so many different drawings, and I covered it up. And now I know that that's part of an artifact of, the things that I was thinking before that I maybe didn't want to see. And it's something else now, and that's what we have the freedom to do, and it's our own surface that we're working on.
It's like a diary. If you rewrite over pages, you no longer have a diary. I mean, you're writing it, but this is a reflection of your past, part of the history that belongs to you and only you, or whom you choose to share it with.
Absolutely. And I think because it is intensely that person's object, I mean, it becomes their own, a part of their personal history. We have the freedom to choose whether we want to cover that or not, and it's really so personal. But I know that sometimes there's this fear that, like, what if somebody sees it? But in reality, most people are focused on themselves, and they're not like looking to dig into something from somebody else, like especially this this thing that's probably hidden somewhere. Like, I keep mine in my bag all the time, and I've just gotten really used to the fact that I don't necessarily have anything to hide, and if I hide it, it's something that I know about, and it just adds to the layers of the picture that becomes something else. And sometimes, like this, obviously, it's just a reaction to current events.
Right.
What's happening right now. These are kind of related. This was a really funny one because we ordered pizza, like I think on day 20. I had this pizza gift card, and I ordered pizza with the kids, and it was this story of like, and that's part of the fun of it, is that you go back and like, now I can remember what this was about. We ordered pizza. It was the first thing that we had done for 20 days that wasn't me cooking. And the delivery guy came, and the kids just started screaming. They were so excited. And then he was like waving through the window. And so it's fun to look back on those things.
Yeah. Well, and I assume this third one from the top is the actual COVID virus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is amazing. As awful as the virus is, damn, it's beautiful.
It really is. I think all the different representations of it, like some can be pretty disturbing because it's this bright red ominous thing, and it feels that way, but also there's something really satisfying about drawing it myself, because I feel like I can make as many or as few as I want and make them as large or as small as I want to, and so it feels somehow like I have control over that when I know that I don't. It's just, it gives me that feeling of like, okay, I can put you here and close it, and then put it away and look at it again if I want to. I guess that's part of the purpose.
Well, I thank you for sharing this side of you. I mean, this is a very kind of intimate thing that you're showing, and I appreciate that. And I hope that this really inspires people to pick up something and sketch. I certainly, for one, will, if percolating, because I should be doing that too.
You know, I think one way to look at it is it's not something to put on a list of things to do. I used to treat it like that, like, oh, I need to work in my sketchbook. But it's now I just want to. And it became something entirely different when I changed my format and the way I thought of it, and used it just to get things out that maybe I don't have a way to articulate. It's a visual representation of what I'm thinking. And sometimes, usually I don't even know what it's going to look like at the end. And it feels entirely different than creating a painting on canvas, because it can be so personal. Although sometimes they relate, sometimes they become that. This is one of my kids' drawing on here. I think this is Arliss, maybe Orson, but then I just painted around it because I just give them my sketchbook sometimes. And there's that last one. So I'll stop the screen share because those are the ones that I chose to share. There are plenty that would be just not that fun to look at because it's just pages of writing or things that, you know, there's lots and lots of ugly pages, and that's okay too. And I wanted to say that, like, there's use in that also.
Yeah, I really like your comparison to journals and notebooks, because you're right. It's like just a creative book, and you use it how you want to use it, and it is like a diary. You can reflect back, and it reminds you of different points of your life. And it also is super inspirational. Unlike when you could write, if you were doing a diary, what you want your life to be. I mean, there's a lot of that's really good, but you could also draw your future, and there's so much. I mean, it's like your vision board. This is what I want it to be, and these are my goals, and I think that that's a great constant reminder every day. Draw a little something about how you want tomorrow, next week, next year to go, and then you also have a little slice of pie of what's actually happening.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun, like when a page really works out well, that to go back and look at that, and it kind of inspires going, you know, moving forward. A lot of people right now are writing. There's a trend that people are doing right now when we're sort of isolated to write 3 things that you're grateful for. And I've been doing that visually as well, like the pizza. Like, I was really grateful that came to my door and that's still a possibility. And it's simple things like that that I think it's worthwhile to document somehow. For no one else but yourself, right?
Right. Very important. I don't want to take too much of your time up. I appreciate you sitting in with our happy hour here with us. I just want to, I feel it's important too, because you do so much for the community. If people realize you are such an inspiration in all the things you do, I for one say thank you. I mean, you sit on the Forest Grove Art Commission. You've been the president of Valley Art. You do murals all over the community. You do these pop-up shows to encourage people that may not have experience with art to show their creative side. I know those are just only a handful of things that you do, but you are an inspiration to people in our community, and I thank you for that. I also want to share 2 things. One, I believe this was, let's see, can you see that?
It looks like a mirror almost. I can't see it.
Okay. Oh, shoot. It's not.
It looks like a magic trick.
Okay, hold on. You know, it's because of my virtual background. Let's see.
Oh.
Okay, is that better? For a minute, I'll slice that pie out. All right, I had to take my virtual background out, but I wanted to show this.
Oh, no way. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that. So this is kind of my way of sketching, because I believe these are like little paint chip samples or something.
Yeah.
And I just felt, you posted this on Facebook, and I reached out and I said, I have to have that. And then I just kind of took your design and added a little bit of the mountain or the grass, just, I don't know.
So well.
Development. And then this is another miniature piece of yours.
Oh yeah, is that that's on a tiny canvas, right?
Yes, that's a tiny canvas. Yeah.
Gosh,
so
that's so cool.
Yeah. Anyway, it's exciting that I have some pieces of yours that I absolutely treasure.
Well, thank you, and I love your art form as well, because I know that like when I get things framed, it's always from you, because I know that I can trust you to have that vision to make it, make it pop in a way that it wouldn't have if I was trying to. It's not the way I think, so I really appreciate that about you.
It's amazing. There's so many different forms, and maybe it was you that told me, or if somebody else and I forgot their name, I apologize. But could be April too. That there's so many different types of art. It's not, just because you're a calligrapher doesn't make you a painter, or just because you're a picture framer doesn't make you, an illustrator. So I think it's important for people to realize that there's a lot of different types of art. Because if you're an artist, it doesn't mean you do all types.
Right. But you could try. I mean, you could,
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, I think it is true. Like I would love to be great at calligraphy, but I'm not a calligrapher. It's not a skill that I have at this point. But I'm interested, and I think it's maybe a stretch, but I think what you were talking about earlier with the community aspects of being on the Arts Commission, I think one of the best things that we can do for each other is extend that invitation and just say, like, do you want to try this with me, or can you see yourself doing this? And there were plenty of points in my life where I was or was not invited, and those all have a different effect on how we move forward. So my main priority just as a human is to invite people when and where I can, and be aware of who's not being invited, and try to, facilitate that happening. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. It makes complete sense. It makes complete sense, and I thank you for doing that. So, well, Emily, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll be sure to list all the ways that people can reach you for murals, illustrations, painting.
I'm right up the street. I'm right up the street.
Yes. So I will talk to you later. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again. All right, Emily. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for joining us for Happy Hour. I really enjoyed hearing Emily's perspective on sketchbooks and how it is, it's a journal, it's a creative book. And I think that is something that I will change my thought on sketchbooks based on her explanation of it. And I hope that you enjoy it. And if you haven't started sketching, pick up a sketchbook. We hope to continue these happy hours. So if you know somebody that would like to participate in a happy hour, reach out through info@framerstouch or any of our social media sites. And we look forward to seeing you next week at 4 p.m.